For centuries, humans were forgotten, mocked, and underestimated. The galaxy thought they were weak, harmless, lost to history. But from the shadows, ancient dreadnoughts awaken. Ships that dwarf empires, weapons that erase fleets in moments. Humanity rises, feared by destiny, unstoppable, and ready to reclaim its place among the stars. Subscribe now to witness the full story of courage, power, and the human spirit unleashed. Humanity once walked among the stars with confidence, their ships crossing galaxies the way birds cross the sky. They were not just explorers, they were builders, thinkers, warriors, and dreamers. Their technology was so advanced that other civilizations called them the architects of light. Their cities floated above planets, their machines harvested energy from collapsing stars, and their scientists touched secrets that even the bravest species feared to study. But greatness always attracts danger, and humanity's rise brought an ancient enemy out of the dark. No one in the present remembers the name of that enemy, only that it came from beyond the mapped universe. A place with no suns, no planets, only endless shadow. These beings saw humanity as a threat to their dominance, so they launched a war that shook the cosmos. Entire star systems vanished in the battles, planets cracked open, and galaxies trembled as weapons of impossible power were unleashed. Humanity fought with courage and brilliance, using technology that dwarfed anything known today. Yet even with all their strength, the enemy was relentless. The war dragged on until humanity faced a cruel truth. If they continued fighting openly, both sides would burn the universe to ash. So the ancient humans made a final decision, a sacrifice that would change everything. Instead of fighting until extinction, they chose to disappear. They sealed away their dreadnoughts, their weapons, their cities, and even their own history. They erased themselves from the memory of the galaxy. They hid their power deep under their homeworlds, waiting for a time when they would be needed again. The survivors spread across the stars, but lived as simple people, pretending to be ordinary so the enemy would lose interest. With centuries passing, new generations forgot the truth of their ancestors. The legends became myths, the myths became bedtime stories, and then even those stories faded. Only a few dusty ruins and strange artifacts remained on forgotten planets. But no one understood what they were. No one knew they were touching the remains of a civilization that once shaped the universe. Alien species who rose after the war built their empires without ever knowing the truth. They found Earth and its people and saw only a young, harmless race with small ships and fragile bodies. They laughed at how humans fought with simple weapons, how they argued, how they struggled. To them, humans were nothing more than a minor species living in a quiet corner of the galaxy. Not worth fearing, not worth respecting, just another ordinary race to command. Scholars occasionally wondered about strange gaps in ancient timelines. Notes about a vanished superpower or a lost civilization strong enough to crush star empires. But without proof, even scholars dismissed those ideas. It was easier to believe no such power existed. It was easier to believe the galaxy always belonged to the current great empires. No one imagined that the stories erased from history were not fiction, but warnings. No one realized that the feared power destiny whispered about was the same species walking quietly among them. Humanity itself lived unaware of the truth written in their blood, unaware of the legacy waiting beneath their feet. They grew, they struggled, they evolved, but they never knew the unbelievable past hidden behind millions of years. Their scientists sometimes found impossible metal buried deep underground, metal that did not rust, bend, or melt. They found ruins with symbols no one could translate. They found energy signatures older than recorded time. But they always assumed these discoveries belonged to other alien species, never to themselves. The galaxy believed humans had no hidden strength, no forgotten glory, no ancient empire. Yet the truth remained buried in silence. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had not been small. Humanity had not been lost. They had only chosen to disappear so the universe could live. They had only stepped into the shadows to stop a war no one else could understand. Their power was not gone, only sleeping. Their history was not erased, only hidden, and destiny was waiting for the moment when humans would finally uncover who they truly were. The galaxy had forgotten them, but destiny had not. The past was sleeping, not dead, and the awakening was closer than anyone realized. Humanity lived quietly among the stars, believing they were just one small race in a galaxy ruled by powerful empires. Their colonies were spread thin, their fleets small, and their technology seemed weak compared to the giant warships of other species. Most humans thought this was normal. They believed they were simply latecomers to the galaxy, just beginning to learn how big and dangerous the universe really was. They did not know that their ancestors had once ruled the same stars they now feared. The alien empires saw humanity as easy to control. They imposed heavy taxes on human colonies, demanded resources, and often ignored human protests. Some alien commanders treated humans like children who needed guidance. Others treated them like servants, and a few saw them as obstacles to crush whenever convenient. Human diplomats tried to argue for fairness, tried to create peace, tried to join alliances, but their voices were often pushed aside. In most meetings, humans sat silently at the edge of the room, while stronger species made decisions that shaped their fate. Human colonists felt the pressure the most. On distant planets, alien fleets would arrive unannounced, taking minerals, food, or technology. Sometimes they claimed these were payments for protection, even if no protection was ever given. Human space stations were inspected harshly, every ship searched, every law enforced with no mercy. A small mistake could lead to a colony being fined or even punished. The aliens believed humans wouldn't fight back because humans had never shown any sign of great strength. Tension grew year by year. In mining colonies, workers complained that alien corporations were stealing their resources. On agricultural worlds, farmers struggled because alien traders would buy their crops at unfair prices. Merchant ships were sometimes stopped for no reason, held for days, and released without apology. Every small injustice built a quiet anger inside the human population, but they didn't know what to do. They did not have fleets strong enough to challenge the great empires, and they did not have the courage to start a war they were sure to lose. Even within the human government, leaders argued over the best path forward. Some believed humans should continue to negotiate and avoid conflict at all costs. Others felt that humans should start building more weapons, even if it risked war. A few began to suspect that the galaxy feared something about humanity, something missing from their records. There were rumors, tiny whispers that humans were not as weak as they appeared, but no one had any proof. So the leaders returned to doing what they had always done, hoping the galaxy's powerful nations would eventually show mercy. Meanwhile, alien citizens across the galaxy formed their own opinions about humans. Many saw them as harmless, emotional, and naive. They joked about human behavior, calling them unpredictable and fragile. Soldiers from alien armies laughed at how small human warships were compared to their own. Merchants dismissed human products as cheap and low quality. Students in alien academies were taught that humans were a developing species, one that would need centuries before becoming important. Almost no one believed humans were capable of anything remarkable. But all aliens underestimated them. A few ancient species, older than the great empires, kept a careful eye on humanity. They sensed something strange, an energy signature buried deep in human space, a silence that felt unnatural. These species did not interfere. But they watched closely, wondering if the old stories were true, wondering if the galaxy was repeating an ancient mistake. Still, they stayed quiet, afraid to be wrong, afraid to disturb whatever was sleeping. Human civilians continued living their daily lives, dreaming of better futures despite the pressure around them. Children played under artificial skies on colony stations. Families farmed dusty fields on frontier planets. Engineers repaired damaged ships hoping tomorrow would be brighter. But deep inside, a quiet fear grew, a feeling that something was coming, something bigger than taxes, inspections, or unfair treatment. A storm was building, even if no one could see it. Across human space, many felt they were reaching a breaking point. How long could they endure being silenced, controlled, and underestimated? How long until someone pushed too far? Humans didn't want war, but they also didn't want to live as a weak species forever. They were tired of being treated like they didn't matter. Tired of feeling small in a universe that once feared their ancestors. And without knowing it, they were moving closer and closer to the moment when everything would change. A moment when humanity would finally stop being passive and reveal the strength destiny had been waiting for. A young Terran researcher named Aaron spent most of his life studying strange signals and forgotten ruins that other scientists ignored. He was quiet, curious, and stubborn, the kind of person who could spend weeks on a single question without giving up. Most people laughed at his work, telling him he was wasting time on old mysteries that had no value. But Aaron always felt something was hidden beneath the surface of human history. Something important, something powerful. He believed the galaxy did not know the whole truth about humanity, and maybe humans themselves didn't know it either. One day, while analyzing deep Earth scans from an abandoned research project, Aaron noticed unusual energy patterns coming from beneath Earth's crust. These were not natural energies, not volcanic heat or magnetic fields. They were structured patterns, clean and mathematical, as if created by intelligent beings. His heart began racing as he zoomed in, the signals repeated in a sequence too perfect to be random. It was almost like a heartbeat, a slow mechanical pulse echoing through stone that had not been touched for thousands of years. Aaron requested access to more restricted data, but the officials refused him. They claimed the information was classified and dangerous. The rejection only made him more determined. Using old codes he discovered in forgotten archives, he slipped into locked databases that no one had checked in centuries. What he found stunned him. There were maps showing massive underground structures hidden all across Earth and several human colonies. Buildings the size of cities, long tunnels, chambers filled with unknown machines, and something even greater at the very center, something the files described only with one name, Dreadnought Class Core. Confused and excited, Aaron searched deeper, reading reports written by people who had vanished long before he was born. Those scientists claimed humans were not discovering these structures. They were inheriting them. According to the records, these machines were created by ancient humans, the same ancestors the galaxy believed were simple, weak beings. But the reports said the opposite. They described technologies so advanced that present-day humans could not even understand the materials used. Armor that could survive inside stars, engines that could bend space without fuel, and weapons that could erase entire fleets in seconds. Aaron realized he had uncovered a secret that could change everything. If these machines were real, then humanity's weakness was nothing but a disguise, a long-forgotten lie built for survival. The question was why? Why would ancient humans hide such incredible power under their own planet? Why erase their own history and live as a quiet, underestimated species? As Aaron studied the files, one detail chilled him. The ancient humans had sealed these machines not because they were afraid of using them, but because they feared what might return from the void. They believed the enemy they fought long ago would come back, and the machines would awaken when the danger returned. With every new discovery, Aaron felt the weight of destiny pressing on his shoulders. He understood now why some alien species treated humans with suspicion instead of mockery. They must have sensed traces of this sleeping power, even if they didn't know what it was. He decided he needed to confirm the truth with his own eyes. Using a combination of old mining bots and forbidden access codes, Aaron traveled to one of the hidden sites revealed in the files, a location deep beneath Earth's surface where no official team had dared to explore. The descent took hours through narrow tunnels and unstable rock. The air was cold, dry, and silent. But as he reached the chamber marked on the map, he froze in shock. Before him stood a machine larger than any human creation he had ever seen. It looked like a fortress wrapped around a star, metal glowing faintly with patterns that pulsed like veins of light. It was beautiful, terrifying, and alive. The moment he stepped closer, the machine reacted. A deep rumble echoed through the cavern, dust falling from the ceiling. The heartbeat-like pulse he had seen in the data grew louder and faster. Aaron tried to step back, but the floor beneath him lit up with bright lines, as if the ancient machine was scanning him. He felt a vibration in his bones, a low sound that resonated with something inside him. It was as if the machine recognized him, as if it had been waiting for a descendant of humanity to return. Then a line of text appeared on a cracked ancient screen near the center of the chamber. The message was simple, yet it changed Aaron's entire world. Human presence verified, Dreadnought Core preparing for awakening. Aaron stared at the message, unable to breathe. The truth he had suspected was no longer a theory. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had not been simple. Humanity had been hiding something unimaginable beneath their feet. The ancient dreadnoughts were real, and they were waking up again. And Aaron understood with growing fear that if the machines were awakening, then the danger that once threatened the universe was returning too. The galaxy believed humans were small, but they had never been small. They had only been sleeping, waiting for the moment when their true power would be needed once more. As the dreadnoughts slowly awakened, the ground shook beneath human cities, buildings vibrating as if the planet itself was breathing. The massive machines had been silent for thousands of years, buried under layers of rock, ice, and forgotten civilizations. But now, deep within the Earth and across hidden colonies, engines rumbled to life, circuits glowed faintly, and the hum of power filled the air. It was not just energy, it was a presence, a reminder of an ancient force the galaxy had believed lost. People felt it instinctively, a shiver down the spine, a warning they could not explain. From orbit, human scientists observed strange lights pulsing beneath the planet's surface, patterns that matched nothing in contemporary technology. The glow spread slowly, like veins of fire running under continents, stretching across oceans, reaching into the heart of every dreadnought buried beneath distant colonies. Each machine came alive according to its design, systems booting in sequence, weapons charging, defensive shields forming around dormant hulls. It was a coordinated awakening, a signal that humanity's hidden fleet was preparing for action. Military analysts were the first to realize the significance, but even they struggled to comprehend the scale. The dreadnoughts were enormous, far larger than any human or alien warship in the galaxy today. They were moving with purpose, engines pushing against the crust, tunnels collapsing as the machines broke free from their graves. The vibrations reached space, altering satellite orbits and causing small disturbances on nearby moons. Alien fleets monitoring the sector reported unusual seismic readings, but they could not detect the machines until they surfaced. Above the planets, a strange calm settled, broken only by the low rumble of activation. Ships in orbit trembled as the ground beneath them seemed alive. And then the first dreadnought emerged, breaking through the crust like a titan waking from an eternal slumber. Metal glinting, weapon systems humming, and massive engines glowing like distant suns. Humanity's old power had returned, not hidden, not secret, but present in a form that no one in the galaxy could ignore. The awakening was not violent at first. It was methodical, precise, almost ceremonial. The machines did not destroy anything nearby. They did not fire weapons. They moved as if guided by intelligence, scanning the surroundings, identifying threats, and preparing to defend humanity from dangers long forgotten. Humans on the surface watched in awe and fear. Cameras captured the moment for a world that had never seen anything like it. Images of the dreadnoughts became viral overnight, yet the galaxy beyond still did not understand. Aaron, the researcher who discovered the hidden sites, was at the command center monitoring the activation. He could feel the energy through the ground, through instruments, through the very air. The dreadnoughts were alive, but not in a way that humans had ever experienced. It was not just technology, it was history, memory, and will, all combined into machines designed to protect and enforce a forgotten order. And the most terrifying part was that these machines remembered everything. They remembered the enemies that had forced humans into hiding. They remembered the wars that had almost destroyed the galaxy. As more dreadnoughts emerged across hidden sites on Earth and human colonies, the scale became clear. Dozens, then hundreds of massive machines, all activating simultaneously, each one a fortress, a weapon, a warning. Together, they formed a silent army, ready to respond to threats that had not yet returned. The galaxy, still blind to their presence, could not have imagined such a force. Alien intelligence detected unusual energy spikes, but could not identify their source. Sensors could not penetrate the ancient shielding, and signals sent to human colonies indicated only one message: prepare, awaken, protect. The pulse of power spread like a heartbeat across human space, stirring citizens, scientists, and military leaders alike. There was fear, yes, but also pride, awe, and hope. Humanity realized it was not powerless. It was simply rediscovering what had always belonged to them. The dreadnoughts were not just machines. They were a statement, a proof that humans had never been ordinary, never been weak, and never truly forgotten by destiny. And as the last engines roared to life, sending shockwaves across planets and moons, the universe felt a presence it had long underestimated. The shadow of ancient humanity had returned. Across the galaxy, even those watching from afar sensed the awakening. Signals, seismic waves, and unknown energy readings reached alien fleets, causing confusion and alarm. But no one could see the full picture. No one could understand that the species they had mocked for centuries was now awakening in full force. Humanity was not just reclaiming itself, it was preparing to reveal its power. The dreadnoughts moved like a tide across space and planet, and with every pulse, every light, every vibration, the galaxy began to feel a warning. Subtle at first, then undeniable. Something ancient, vast, and unstoppable had returned. The first contact between the awakened dreadnoughts and the alien fleets was sudden and overwhelming. Alien commanders, monitoring human space, noticed massive energy readings approaching their positions. At first, they assumed it was a glitch, a natural phenomenon, or perhaps an unknown human experiment. But as the readings grew stronger, sensors detected movement, massive shadows moving through space, blocking stars with their immense bulk. And then the dreadnoughts appeared, breaking through warp lanes and asteroid belts with unstoppable momentum. Human commanders scrambled their fleets to coordinate with the ancient machines. Although humans had small warships compared to alien armadas, they acted quickly, guiding the dreadnoughts and ensuring no human settlements were harmed in the awakening. The dreadnoughts seemed to respond to subtle signals from humanity, as if recognizing descendants of their creators. Their weapon systems hummed with energy, shields formed around them, and targeting arrays locked onto the nearest enemy fleets. The aliens, thinking humans were still weak, had no idea what they were facing. The first shots were terrifying, alien ships exploding before any return fire could reach them. Weapons meant to destroy planets were shattered, hulls disintegrated instantly under the dreadnoughts' energy beams. Alien pilots reported seeing massive figures through energy shields, giant metal structures moving with impossible speed and precision. Panic spread through the fleets. Many tried to retreat, only to find that the dreadnoughts anticipated every move, cutting off escape routes and blocking hyperspace corridors. The very geometry of space seemed to bend around the machines, trapping enemy ships in strategic grids. On the human side, officers watched in disbelief. Their ancestors had built these machines to protect humanity, but seeing them in action, even they were amazed. Every dreadnought moved as if alive, calculating thousands of targets at once, avoiding debris, and firing with exact timing. There was no chaos, no hesitation, only unstoppable precision. Alien communications were filled with confusion, anger, and fear. They had underestimated humans for centuries, believing them weak, insignificant, and harmless. Now, every empire realized the mistake. As the battle unfolded, humans on distant colonies saw flashes in the sky, felt vibrations through the ground, and heard alarms that had not sounded in decades. Families watched in awe and fear as the machines of legend returned to the stars. Some wept, others cheered, but all understood one truth. Humanity was no longer at the mercy of alien empires. Humanity had regained control of its destiny, and the dreadnoughts were proof. Alien admirals tried to form counterattacks, launching specialized ships armed with weapons designed to pierce the shields of normal vessels. They expected these tactics to succeed, but the dreadnoughts adapted instantly. Shields reconfigured, energy outputs increased, and retaliatory strikes obliterated the attackers. Entire squadrons vanished within minutes, leaving only debris drifting in the void. The galaxy watched in silence, unable to comprehend how a species thought weak could command such overwhelming power. Amid the chaos, human strategists realized that the awakening was more than just a defense. It was a statement, a reclamation. Humanity was showing the galaxy that it would no longer be ignored, that it had the tools and the courage to defend itself, and that the power once feared by destiny had returned. Communications from alien diplomats quickly shifted from arrogance to desperation. Many sent messages begging for negotiation, but the dreadnoughts did not respond to words. Only actions mattered, and the destruction of the first fleets sent a clear message. Despite the fear, humans were careful, targeting only those who had threatened them or their colonies. Innocent civilizations were left untouched, Every strike was calculated, precise, and purposeful. The dreadnoughts were weapons, but they were also guardians, enforcing justice and protection rather than mindless destruction. Alien intelligence across the galaxy began reassessing their knowledge of humans. Reports came from every quadrant. Humans were not victims, not weaklings, not a minor species. They were a force to be respected, feared, and perhaps avoided at all costs. By the end of the first counterstrike, the scale of human power was undeniable. Hundreds of alien ships destroyed, colonies freed, strategic positions reclaimed. The dreadnoughts had proven their purpose. Humanity had proven its will. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to whisper a new truth. Humans had not been conquered. Humans had only been hidden. And now, they had returned to take their place among the stars, not as victims, not as weaklings, but as a power no one could ignore. The awakening was complete, and the first victory had shown the galaxy that destiny had always been on humanity's side. News of humanity's first counterstrike spread across the galaxy faster than anyone could have imagined. Alien civilizations that had once dismissed humans as weak and insignificant were now scrambling to understand what had happened. Reports of colossal dreadnoughts emerging from hidden colonies, destroying entire fleets with unmatched precision, reached every corner of space. Diplomats and military leaders alike felt a mixture of fear, disbelief, and urgency. It was as if the universe itself had suddenly remembered a power it had long forgotten. In the great empires, scientists and historians began digging through old records, hoping to find clues about humanity's true past. Many discovered fragments of ancient documents, long considered myths, that spoke of humans who had once ruled entire sectors. Their eyes widened as the descriptions matched the recent reports from observers of the dreadnoughts. Ancient weapons, massive starships, cities floating above planets, technology that could harness the power of stars. These were no longer stories. They were reality. The galaxy began to realize that humanity had been underestimated for centuries. Panic spread among alien fleets stationed near human space. Commanders ordered retreat, repositioning, and emergency reinforcements, but the dreadnoughts were already moving with careful calculation, cutting off escape routes and neutralizing threats with surgical efficiency. Every new engagement proved the same truth. Humans had returned in force, and no empire could challenge them directly. Merchants and traders who relied on human colonies now feared for their lives and investments. Some abandoned trade routes, while others hastily tried to secure agreements to avoid conflict. Everywhere, the presence of humanity was being felt, not just as a threat, but as a reminder of the power that had been hidden for centuries. Even peaceful species that had no interest in war felt the tension. Star systems far from human space detected the energy signatures of the awakening dreadnoughts. Sensors picked up disturbances that could not be explained by normal phenomena. Philosophers and scholars speculated on what this meant. Some believed humans were awakening to reclaim their rightful place in the galaxy. Others feared that a new era of war was inevitable. Still, everyone agreed on one fact. Humans were no longer a species to be ignored. Within human space, the response to the awakening was electric. Civilians, scientists, and military personnel alike felt pride and awe as they watched the machines move and protect human colonies. Children stared at the skies, wondering if they were witnessing the return of legends from stories their grandparents had barely remembered. Scientists like Aaron worked tirelessly to interface with the dreadnoughts, sending coordination signals, monitoring energy flows, and ensuring the machines acted with precision and restraint. Humanity's leaders realized that their return to power was not just a display of force. It was a message to the galaxy that humans had survived, endured, and were ready to reclaim their place. Across alien civilizations, fear turned into strategy. Alliances that had been stable for centuries began to wobble, as some species decided to prepare for possible confrontation. Others reached out in negotiation, hoping to find a peaceful solution before facing the wrath of the awakened humans. Military planners studied reports of the dreadnought's capabilities, trying to develop countermeasures, but every calculation revealed the same uncomfortable truth. Humans possessed technology and tactics far beyond what any empire had anticipated. Even in distant star systems, rumors began to spread. Whispered conversations among traders, smugglers, and explorers carried the story of a species long underestimated, now returning with unimaginable power. Some called it divine justice, others said it was destiny, and yet others believed it was a warning. For humans themselves, the galaxy's fear was not the goal. Humanity did not seek to dominate for the sake of conquest, but to show that they were capable of defending themselves and ensuring that no other species could treat them as insignificant again. As the dreadnoughts continued to patrol human space, securing colonies and protecting settlements, the galaxy slowly began to adapt. Strategists, historians, and diplomats took note that the species they had ignored or mocked had returned as a force no one could challenge openly. The balance of power had shifted, and humanity's presence was no longer just a quiet corner of the universe. It was a force that demanded attention, respect, and caution. The legend of humanity, long lost to history, was now real, feared, and impossible to ignore. And as humans continued to strengthen their positions and awaken more dreadnoughts, the galaxy slowly understood that history had been hiding the truth about a species that had always been destined for greatness. Humanity stood at a crossroads. The dreadnoughts had awakened, alien fleets had been shattered, and the galaxy was finally paying attention. But with immense power came responsibility. Leaders, scientists, and military commanders understood that the true test was not just showing strength, but using it wisely. Many in human society debated what the next step should be. Some argued for revenge, for reclaiming lost territories and striking fear into those who had oppressed humans for centuries. Others insisted on restraint, reminding everyone that humanity had survived by hiding, and that unnecessary destruction could repeat the mistakes of the past. The Human Council, a gathering of leaders and strategists, decided that their mission must be protection first. Not conquest, not dominance, but ensuring that humans and allied civilizations could thrive without fear. Orders were sent to all dreadnought units to engage only those who posed a direct threat. Civilian ships, neutral planets, and innocent populations were to remain untouched. The machines, vast and powerful as they were, responded instantly, adjusting their patrol routes and combat parameters according to human commands. Every move was precise, every strike calculated, showing that humanity's true power was intelligence and control, not mindless violence. As dreadnoughts moved across former conflict zones, human fleets coordinated to assist planets under threat from opportunistic alien factions. Diplomats traveled with armed escorts to negotiate peace treaties and ensure stability. Even species that had once mocked humans began to recognize the discipline and restraint being exercised. Fear was still present, but it was mixed with awe and respect. Humans had not arrived to conquer, but to set a new standard, showing that their strength came with responsibility. The ancient designs of the dreadnoughts allowed for incredible adaptability, and humans quickly learned to interface with the machines, allowing for flexible responses to any situation. In regions where alien forces attempted small attacks, the dreadnoughts neutralized the threats without causing unnecessary collateral damage. Entire fleets were captured or disabled, rather than destroyed, whenever possible. Humans realized that true power lay not in obliteration, but in control and strategy. The galaxy was witnessing a species that had once been underestimated, exercising its power with intelligence and morality. Even in distant colonies, civilians began to understand that humanity's return was not chaotic or vengeful. Families, children, and workers saw that the dreadnoughts' movements were purposeful and protective. Schools incorporated lessons about the ancient history of humanity, rediscovering stories of lost empires and legendary feats that had been erased over millennia. Pride grew among the population, not just for surviving, but for choosing a path that reflected wisdom and foresight. The awakening was not just technological, it was cultural, moral, and societal, a statement that humans were ready to lead by example. The alien empires were forced to rethink their approach. Some leaders began sending envoys to discuss ceasefires, trade agreements, and non-aggression pacts. Others panicked, strengthening military forces in preparation for the possibility of future conflict. Across the galaxy, the perception of humanity shifted dramatically. No longer seen as weak, humans were now recognized as a species capable of defending itself and making deliberate, thoughtful decisions. The dreadnoughts were not simply weapons. They were symbols of humanity's intelligence, restraint, and discipline. Behind the scenes, scientists continued to study and enhance the dreadnought's capabilities, not to expand for war, but to ensure that humans could maintain security across vast distances. Energy systems were optimized, defensive shields strengthened, communication networks expanded. Each modification reinforced the idea that humans were prepared for anything the galaxy might throw at them. Yet even with all this power, humans refused to act recklessly. Every decision was measured, a reflection of a species learning from its past mistakes and honoring the legacy of its ancestors. In time, the galaxy began to see a new truth. Humanity's strength was not just in technology or weapons, but in judgment, discipline, and the choice to protect rather than destroy. This approach won over some former enemies, inspired allies, and established humans as a force respected across the stars. The species that had once been underestimated was now a standard of power with purpose. And the lesson was clear. True strength lies in knowing when and how to use it. Not in the fear it creates, but in the protection and justice it enforces. As dreadnoughts patrolled the sectors and humans coordinated settlements and defenses, the universe slowly accepted that humanity's time had come. The galaxy could no longer ignore the power hidden for centuries, and yet humanity's wisdom in wielding it ensured that fear did not turn into chaos. Humans were no longer a species lost to history, nor were they reckless. They were a force that had learned patience, strategy, and morality. A civilization finally revealing that its strength was matched only by its restraint. And in every system touched by the dreadnoughts, the message was unmistakable. Humanity had returned, not to conquer, but to protect, guide, and endure. The galaxy finally understood the truth about humanity. For centuries, civilizations had dismissed humans as weak, insignificant, and easily controlled. Now, after the awakening of the dreadnoughts and the precise, disciplined counterstrikes, it was clear that humans had been underestimated. The species that had once been lost to history had returned in full force, not as reckless conquerors, but as a civilization guided by intelligence, strategy, and morality. Every fleet destroyed, every colony secured, and every threat neutralized told the galaxy that humanity was not just surviving, they were reclaiming their place among the stars. Alien leaders held emergency councils across sectors, trying to grasp the scale of human power. Some panicked, calling for reinforcements, while others sent envoys to negotiate peace. They analyzed the dreadnoughts, trying to understand how such machines could exist, how a species thought weak could command technology capable of altering the balance of power across entire galaxies. Reports flooded every empire, describing massive engines glowing like stars, weapons that struck with perfect timing, and shields that seemed impenetrable. Historians scoured their archives, realizing that fragments of old myths were true, that humans had once been feared, and perhaps rightfully so. Within human space, celebrations were quiet but profound. Citizens watched as the dreadnoughts moved across planets, protecting colonies and ensuring stability. Children learned for the first time that their ancestors were not ordinary, that humanity had once shaped the universe. Scholars and scientists studied the ancient machines, interfacing with them to unlock more secrets. Each discovery reminded humans that their strength was not just in firepower, but in the knowledge and wisdom they carried. Humanity's leaders coordinated every action carefully, showing that the species' true power was in restraint and strategy, not blind destruction. The dreadnoughts themselves became symbols across the galaxy, proof that humanity was not a threat born of chaos, but a force shaped by purpose and history. Other civilizations began to reassess their understanding of power. Not all humans were soldiers or scientists, but the presence of the machines reflected the potential of an entire species. Fear of humanity spread quickly, but it was tempered with respect. Every empire realized that humans could no longer be treated as weak, vulnerable, or naive. They were a force that had returned from the shadows of history, and the consequences of underestimating them could be catastrophic. Diplomats from distant worlds approached human leaders with caution, some seeking alliances, others hoping to avoid conflict. Humans received messages of surrender, requests for trade agreements, and proposals for mutual protection. But every human response reflected their new philosophy. Strength used wisely for protection and justice, not conquest. Every engagement and negotiation reinforced that humanity had learned from the mistakes of the past, that the power which had once been feared by destiny was now guided by morality and foresight, and not just raw strength. The galaxy slowly began to accept a new order, one where humanity's power was undeniable yet disciplined, where dreadnoughts patrolled human space not as instruments of chaos, but as guardians of peace. Former enemies watched carefully, aware that any aggression against humans could trigger overwhelming retaliation. Yet even in restraint, humans demonstrated courage, showing that true power was not measured by fear alone, but by the ability to protect what was right and necessary. Humans proved that strength without control was dangerous, but strength with wisdom was unstoppable. As time passed, legends of humanity spread across the stars. Not just the legends of ancient wars or lost civilizations, but of the return. The species that had vanished from history had awakened to claim its destiny, not to dominate blindly, but to show that its potential was beyond what anyone could imagine. Humans became a standard, a benchmark, that reminded the galaxy that true greatness comes from both capability and responsibility. Every colony, every fleet, and every recovered dreadnought served as evidence that humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. The message was clear. Humanity was alive, powerful, and aware of its responsibility. The galaxy that once feared humans without understanding them now feared them with reason. Humans had not only survived history, they had mastered it, learned from it, and returned stronger, wiser, and more disciplined than ever. Lost to history, feared by destiny, humanity had finally revealed its power. The universe had witnessed the awakening, and it would never forget it. Humanity had returned not to conquer, but to endure, protect, and prove that the species' strength was worthy of the stars.